Welcome back to the channel, my friends. Warhammer Man Studios. I'm Warhammer Man, and today we're talking about the culmination of the Horus Heresy. This video is sponsored by CMO Games. More on that later. How many threads are combined to weave the incredible tapestry of the Horus Heresy series? The upcoming End in the Death Volume 3 pits the Emperor of Mankind against Warmaster Horus in their final deadly duel. A single, incredible battle, born from a series of 60-plus books released over a span of 17 years. The massive Horus Heresy series has all been leading up to this critical moment. So before we find out how the Warmaster's rebellion concludes, we're taking a look back over a series as a whole and defining moments that shaped the apocalyptic siege of Terra. So I thought this was a pretty cool idea of Games Workshop. As you're getting ready to wrap up this epic tale that spans 17 years and 60-plus books, it could definitely be a little overwhelming for people that haven't been following along the whole time. A lot of people are more new to the hobby and don't know a ton about the lore, which is probably why lore channels have been so popular over the last few years. So the idea of kind of summing it up and putting some defining moments in an article that might interest people definitely seemed pretty cool to me. The novels began with Horus Rising by Dan Abnett, which introduced many important characters whose actions would reverberate throughout the series, including Garviel Loken, Ezekiel Abaddon, and Horus Lupercal himself. It begins hundreds of years into the Great Crusade, along with False God by Graham McNeil and Galaxy in Flames by Ben Counter, reveals how an honorable and decent chap like Horus fell under the influence of the Chaos Gods. While the series broadly follows the chronological timeline of the Horus Heresy, continuing with Istvan III Betrayal and Flight of Eisenstein by James Swallow, many events occur simultaneously, as can be expected in a galaxy engulfed by war. Fulgrim, also by Graham McNeil, covers a broad swathe of the activities of the Emperor's children leading up to the infamous Dropsite Massacre, including the climactic duel between the titular Primarch and his brother Ferrus Manus. The Salamanders, Iron Hands, and Raven Guard, who suffered atrocious casualties, are visited time and again from new perspectives. The Dropsite Massacre, for instance, is also mentioned in The First Heretic by Aaron Dembski-Bowden, Deliverance Lost by Gav Thorpe, and Vulcan Lives by Nick Kime, from the eyes of the Word-Bearers, Raven Guard, and Salamanders respectively. Just as all this kicking off, Magnus Ared makes his ill-fated attempt to contact the Emperor, and through traitorous meddling, has the Space Wolves unleashed upon his homeworld of Prospero. A Thousand Suns by Graham McNeil and Prospero Burns by Dan Abnett pair up to tell the story of the Fenrisians' brutal reprisal. And although these stories are only loosely connected into the battle in Istvan's system, their consequences all play into an apocalyptic conclusion. After a tumultuous start, many legions split off to accomplish their own goals, while those further from the epicenter are thrown into civil war they have only just learned of. Just as the word-bearers of ambushing the Ultramarines at Calth in Know No Fear by Dan Abnett, the Dark Angels are deciding their loyalties in Fallen Angels by Mike Lee, and soon Angron pitches into the fray in Aaron Dubinsky-Bowden's Betrayer. Fulgrim, meanwhile, enlists the help of Perturabo for a trip to the Eye of Terror in Angel Exterminatus by Graham McNeil, and Sanguinius goes toe-to-toe with the Kabanda in Fear to Dread by James Swallow. As more Primarchs learn of the heresy and tense lines are drawn between warring legions, many of these narrative threads come together in The Unremembered Empire by Dan Abnett, as loyalist forces including the Ultramarines, Blood Angels, Dark Angels, and Shattered Legions congregate on Altmar to plan their next move. The chaotic nature of the Civil War lends itself well to both devoted reading and casual grazing. The sudden appearance of dangerous foes and unexpected challenges reflect the confusion and unpredictability that reigns throughout the heresy, even as Horus marches inexorably towards the Sol system and loyalists prepare what desperate defenses they can. As the bulk of the traitor forces forge a critical path to Terra through the Beta Garmin system, in Titan Death by Guy Haley and John French's Slaves to Darkness, the Imperial Fists battle with vanguard elements of the Alpha Legion in Praetorian of Dorne. Also by John French. Soon the Horus Heresy series finally makes way for the Siege of Terra's first salvos, in French, the Solar War. As the Siege of Terra series begins, everything focuses towards a single climactic conflict that would decide the fate of the Imperium. Characters from across the breadth of the series converge on Terra to make their mark on Siege, with no fewer than 9 Primarchs taking part in one way or the other. Traitor forces land in Terra and the Lost in the Dam by Guy Haley and smash steadily through loyalist defenses over the course of the next 3 novels. The First Wall by Gav Thorpe, Saturnine by Dan Abnett, and Mortis by John French. The action is interwoven with incredible clashes between legendary characters as Sigismund, Karn, Loken, Abaddon, and more roughhouse with hated foes whose rivalry spans several prior novels. Nothing quite eclipses the drama of the Primarch on Primarch duel, though we get plenty of them as the siege continues. Rogel Dorn and Perturabo finally meet in open battle, while Jagadai Khan launches a desperate charge into the now ascended Mortarian's lines in Warhawk by Chris White. Perhaps most legendary of all is Sanguinius' defense of the Eternal Gate in Echoes of Eternity by Aaron Dembski-Bowden, pitting the Great Angel in back-to-back bouts with the reborn Kabanda and the demon Primarch Angron. The drama is palpable as loyalist and traitor efforts come down to fight between 2 sons of an emperor in front of the Imperial Palace, with only the End in the Death to tie together this epic conclusion. Volume 1 and 2 of The End in the Death, both by Dan Abnett, are already available. and an essential read as Volume 3 rapidly nears its pre-order day this Saturday. The duel between the Emperor and Horus is one of the most iconic moments in the history of Warhammer 40,000, and being prepared to read about it in the most exacting detail ever is a must. Now a quick message from today's sponsor. CMO Games has been selling Games Workshop products online for over 20 years. They carry the full line of Games Workshop products including Warhammer 40,000, Age of Sigmar, Necromunda, Blood Bowl, paint tools, and more. Almost all Games Workshop products are priced at 15% off MSRP. CMO Games takes pre-orders for most Games Workshop products released at their earliest date possible. 12:01 a.m. on Saturday, they go live. Most of these pre-order products are also priced at 15% off MSRP. CMO Games offer free shipping in the US 48 with an order of $50 or more. Their customer service is top-notch and they ship most orders within 24 hours. Visit CMOGames.com using the affiliate link in the description and let them know that you heard about CMO Games from Warhammer Man. Now, back to the video. So, very cool little summation of kind of everything comes together. The mention of like all the various different characters and the arcs. How there's like a ton of stuff going on simultaneously that sort of like culminates in this last 3 novel series, of which the final chapter is about to play out. Let me know if you're one of the people that has read all of these novels. I know there's not very many out there, or if there's a particular novel that you have read that's your favorite. I personally am a huge fan of the Horus Heresy, and I've been a massive fan of Warhammer for over 30 years. I still have like the old original kind of like Horus Heresy book where it lays out a lot of the foundings of the Primarchs and everything like that. An awesome relic that I would love to see them reprint. It tells like a lot of the base story that was expanded into these series of novels, and I always found it absolutely fascinating. And while I didn't necessarily get into the actual Horus Heresy game, 30K, even with its rebirth in Horus Heresy, it doesn't mean that I care any less about the awesome story that makes Warhammer 40,000, the epic struggle between the Primarchs, the Emperor, and Horus himself, that laid the foundation for what Warhammer 40,000 is today. So let me know down below if you read any of these books, or after hearing some of the stories, they interest you and you think you might read some in the future. Always like to hear back from you guys in the comments. And also let me know which of the Primarchs is your favorite. I think it'd be really hard for me to choose, but I would say probably either Lionel Johnson or Sanguinius. Special thanks to CMO Games for sponsoring this video. Check out the link in the description to save 15% on Games Workshop products. That's it for today. Warhammer Man Studios, I'm Warhammer Man, and I love me some good lore, and Games Workshop's got the best. And I'm out of here.